right, today we are chatting with Gabi Rooker. Gabi, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks, guys.
Now, this is exciting. It's starting to work. We've tried this now several times.
Yeah.
I feel bad for Gabi because, like, you're the only person that we've had on that we've had this much technical difficulties with. We had to postpone our first interview with Gabi, but now we're back, and I think better than ever.
Okay, so Gabi, it's now been a while. We originally scheduled this podcast shortly after the trials to kind of chat through all that, but now you've had some time to decompress. So how are you feeling and how are you now?
Yeah, it's been a month since the trials. And so it's on one hand kind of wild that it's already been in a month. And on the other hand, it feels like it's been months and months since we were all down in Orlando. So I'm excited and I'm back, much more full into training than I was when we initially were going to talk 2 or 3 weeks ago. So definitely a little different perspective now.
Yeah. How was the downtime? How much did you take off? And do you enjoy that period of time when you're sort of resting and recovering, or do you hate that?
I ended up taking 2 full weeks, which is longer than usual. For me, I did 4 marathons in 14 months, which is much more than I've ever done before. And my husband, Alex, who's my coach, was pretty adamant that I needed a nice long reset. And I think that was probably a pretty good decision. After every other marathon, I've gone back to work, not the day after the marathon, but the second day after. And because I'm working part-time now, I had a whole week. So I didn't really know what to do with myself that first week. And then I went back to work on the second week. And I think after having such a challenging race, to get back to work and have perspective and be taking care of patients in the hospital was a really good thing. It kind of helped me reset and get ready to get back into this training block.
Well, let's get back into that a little bit. So your day job, like we always think you runners just get to, you run in the morning, you take a nap in the afternoon, maybe a second run, and then, some stretching. Maybe your husband's a professional masseuse. And then, the next day you do it all over again. Kind of explain to us what a typical work day training thing would be like for you.
Things have changed for me very dramatically in the last 2 months. But up until then, up until after Thanksgiving, early December, I was working full-time at the University of Minnesota hospital, working 7 days on and then followed by 7 days off. So those 7 days on were pretty intense, where long days, early morning runs, taking care of patients who were hospitalized for kind of any reason, I'd say kind of blanket, except like a surgical problem. And then a longer effort in the evening, and kind of do that for 7 days. And then I had 7 days off to recover and, increase mileage on those weeks off, and really focus on recovery on those weeks off too. So pretty dichotomy. But then in December, I dropped down to part-time. So I'm now actually working 1 week on followed by 3 weeks off. So a pretty wild schedule I have now.
I mean, going down to part-time's got to be really helping you as far as the schedule goes, right?
Yeah, it's been great. I haven't been back to work except one day over the last 2 weeks, and I have one more week until I go back to the hospital. And so having these extended periods where I'm really just focusing on training has been already really nice, and it makes recovery for the next day just drastically different. So I think I really like my job. I really like my coworkers. I like the patients that I take care of. So being able to balance having some time in the hospital, I think it gives a lot of perspective into real world, but then also having big chunks of time to be able to just really focus on training has been an awesome balance for me.
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit and go back to how this all started, because you've had a pretty insane trajectory since you ran your first marathon in 2021. But before we even get to that, let's go back to young Gabi. I know you were a gymnast. Talk to us about what that was like.
Yeah, so I started gymnastics when I was 3 and really never looked back. Fell in love with it right away. And then by the age of 6 or 7, if you're on a competitive track, it becomes pretty intense. And even at that point, most kids are just focusing on gymnastics. So started competing when I was 7 and did that through the club world, which is kind of was pretty single track, very focused on gymnastics, kind of training 20 hours a week for the better part of your teenage years. And then went to college. I did Division III gymnastics and did that throughout college.
I know we talked earlier about, I said I have fear of the beam. Like I see people falling off that beam and it's scary as hell. But you said that you in the bars were actually where you had an injury where it sounded pretty substantial. Like I'm even surprised you get off that and we get back onto the mats.
Yeah, I had a series of unfortunate arm-related injuries in high school, and most of them were on bars. So I had definitely a mental block with that. And in college, you can specialize. You don't have to do all 4 events. So until my senior year, I just did beam, vault, and floor and avoided bars.
So when did running come into the picture?
Shortly after college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So running was one of the different, sports, activities, whatever you want to call it, that I did. And I shared with Allie Feller on Allie on the Run about the first run I ever did with Alex, because he was a sprinter in college. And it was shortly after I had finished up gymnastics. And it was like probably less than a 5K, and really didn't make it through. I hadn't done much physical activity for like 2 months leading into that. And we were running up a hill and it was like 85 degrees. And I was like, I'm done and I'm never doing this again. So luckily, getting some better runs introducing me to running. But yeah, in that period, I did an adult soccer league. We started snowboarding a bunch. We were doing CrossFit. So there were a lot of kind of sampling sports at that time, but I'd say I started running pretty consistently kind of in my mid-20s, and then much more seriously in like 2019.
All right, let's go back to CrossFit.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
That's always a strange one for me.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, and are you still doing it?
Not still doing it, but a lot of gymnasts, because gymnastics is done for the very vast majority of people are done at 22, vacillate towards it because it has a lot of kind of gymnastic-like components. So it's intense and it's hard and it's weird, but you're like, oh, I can do these things because they're kind of like gymnastics. So that's
Meg's brother got real into it with his wife, and we were here, and we can go for a run any city we go to. They came and visited, and there's a park near our house, and they just started doing like CrossFit stuff
burpees
in
and
the park.
Hardcore, and I'm like, what are you guys doing?
It looked insane.
Yeah, it does.
So yeah.
But so you enjoyed that, you lifting heavy weights and doing those fast movements.
Yeah, we lifted all through college, so that piece wasn't new for me either. So I did already have that. And then we still do lift with running twice a week. So definitely not CrossFit, like burpees and kips and things like that. But some of the lifting I was doing in college, we're still doing now.
That's cool. The thing though is you were running 3 miles. It was 85 degrees. You tapped out going up a hill. So how'd you get past that 3 mile mark?
I'm just I'm a very stubborn person, which my mom always called very determined growing up. So I think it was kind of a motivating factor where it's like, I'm not going to let this stupid hill in this heat defeat me. And so maybe if that run had gone better, I would have been less apt to try to get into it. But I think when there's a roadblock in the way, I'm often trying to figure out how to get around it. So I think I started running when it was cooler and, letting myself kind of figure out what I wanted that to look like. And then when I was just in better shape, because after I finished gymnastics, I really gave myself probably 2 months of very little activity since it had been 19 years of a lot. Running comes more naturally when you're just generally more fit.
So Alex was a runner, obviously. He was a sprinter. He's maintaining his fitness by doing running and stuff. He sees you going out, starts to watch you. Is he start to notice that, hey, I think you might have something here? Like how did you go from being because it doesn't sound like, it sounds like maybe a little bit of fitness, but you went to being competitive. How did that journey happen?
Yeah, it was a slow evolution. So I should back up. I forgot to say, I did run track my senior year of high school. I had some coaching changes with gymnastics. And when I decided to go D3, I wanted to do a high school sport and I'd never done one. So I ran sprints, and actually that's when Alex and I met. So I was fast as a kid. So I should definitely caveat that. But I think a lot more, it took kind of several years to go from casual to much more serious. So that was in, 2010, 2011. And then throughout several years of just like running for fun. And we have like a bunch of lakes in Minneapolis, and kind of just starting to run one lake and then starting to run two lakes. Once I had run the Twin Cities 10 mile for the first time, I think that's when I was like, oh, I want to do this competitively. This is really cool. Kind of during that year of training for that. And then as that progressed, then I think it was just this slow progression where kind of around 2018, 2019 is when we started talking about Alex actually coaching me.
And so was he coaching other people this time and you were like, hey, just add me to the roster, or how did that work?
No. So he started cycling after college and was really into just immediately the physiology side of like what makes a cyclist fast, and just basically started buying like textbooks and reading research articles, and dove really deep into it. He's certainly a very like curious person. And when he asks one question, he ends up kind of going down the door of 10 more questions. And so because there is a lot of crossover between cycling and endurance running, it just seemed like a pretty easy transition.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so what did that look like for your guys' relationship? I mean, you're married and he's coaching you. And so was it just like seamless?
I also want to know how many bikes he has.
Number of bikes in our house, like physically in the house, is 2. And then he has 3 more bikes than I think he needs.
I feel like it's like shoes, but it's not quite the same. But like once someone gets really into cycling, it's like, well, I need a gravel bike. I need a road bike, a mountain bike, one to ride around the city.
Yeah. So he recently has been getting a bunch of new parts in the mail. And so I'm like, I mean, you can't just buy a new seat and new handlebars and new, next thing that comes is a new bike frame. Like, you've just bought another bike, and because he builds his own bikes in 50 parts, that counts as a new bike, not just replacing little parts. So I think he's trying to trick me by slowly replacing
it
bikes
into the house. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
And in terms of coaching,
amazing.
it was definitely a transition. It went from being something that I think he gave me a lot of freedom in, try this and see how you like it. But also there are some parameters that you have to follow. For example, my easy runs were too fast. And he was like, I'm not interested in discussing that, except for the fact you need to slow down. So that was kind of a non-negotiable. But then, just sort of over the past 6 years became more from, we talk about it every few days, to we talk about it a lot, to it is most of our lives. So I think we really hit a balance starting a couple years ago of just how that was going to look for our relationship. And now, of course, there's like times where you're in the middle of a hard workout and it's your spouse and it's your coach, and there's that dynamic. But I think for the most part, it's great, and we really like doing it together.
So I'm guessing he's not running next to you on some of these workouts. He's riding his bike.
Yeah. So for a long run, a lot of times we'll have a group and we all get kind of strung out with what our different paces are going to be. So he'll be on a bike with like a backpack and fluids, and it works really well because he can kind of like bike behind me while I run, give me fluids, and then go and like support a teammate and then support a different teammate, bounce back to me. So we'll often just do laps around like the same lake so that he can catch us several times.
See, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, that sounds pretty nice. Okay, so 2018, 2019, you said is when you started to get like maybe more competitive, more into this running thing. And then I believe 2021 is when you ran Grandma's, which was your debut marathon.
Yes.
Okay, so what made you want to go for the marathon distance and why Grandma's?
I think some of my naivety to the sport, having some blinders to what a marathon was and what a build looked like, was maybe a bit protective in, how hard it is, as you guys know. So I had run the Twin Cities 10 mile, which is a big local race. It's for the Twin Cities Marathon in 2019, and that went really well. And so I was just like, why not? Let's go to the marathon. That's what seems to be the next step. So I planned for 2020, and then obviously that all got canceled, and used that year to just get a ton of base miles and keep training. And then 2021 was the debut year for me.
But you went from a 10 miler to the marathon as well.
Yeah, I guess I did do that. Not quite as fast though. I ran I think an hour slower than you. I ran a 3:55. I think you ran a 2:54.
Yeah. Well, and I had, like another detail is, so I joined Mill City Running, which I think, did you guys get to experience them in Orlando?
We saw them, yeah.
Not in Orlando.
Yeah.
We saw you.
Yeah.
We did?
They had like the tent set up right near our hotel.
Okay. Oh, yeah. What they did a thing with Nike.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm familiar with Mill City just because of Ben Johnson and those guys, and yeah. And
so I joined Mill City in 2019, and that was really where I joined my running community, and kind of met the. Oh, sorry.
No, I don't think anything happened.
You're good. I think
okay.
I cut out.
So I joined their team in 2019, and that was where a lot of people were running marathons. And so there were a lot of just other friends and community members. And that's probably where the marathon spark really started, was with Mill City.
What does it mean to join Mill City? What does that entail?
Oh, yeah, definitely. So Mill City is the local running store near me, or there's several, but it's the one that kind of had, I think, the most excitement when I was just exploring the local running scene. It's a community group, so it's come as you are. So really joining just means that you sign up for the team and you get a singlet, and you can be as involved or not involved as you want to be. So they have group runs 4 times a week, and then every other weekend a long run that's supported. And then there's a race team circuit. So I think this year we've got to be greater than 1,000 people, which is absolutely wild. When I started, there were probably 300 that joined. And it's front of the backpack, back of the pack. So we had 4 people who were associated with Mill City at the trials. So myself, my teammate, Kim Horner, and then Heather Camp, who's a former 800, 1500, just absolute champ, and Danny Doherty. And then there are people who are, training for their first 5K, or training for a mile race, or, their first marathon. So it's a huge kind of just support network of community and competition, kind of propping each other up.
That's awesome. Okay, so you join this community, you train through the pandemic, you end up doing your debut at Grandma's. Sub 3, was that the goal going into that race?
Yeah, sub 3 was the goal. I wanted to really enjoy it because I had no idea what to expect. So a lot of people have asked, do I think I could have run my first one faster? So hard to know because you don't know what it's going to be like. But looking back, we can always say could have done this, and this differently. And yeah, maybe that first half could have been a little bit faster, but I think that was the shape I had for that day. And I'm really proud that was my debut marathon.
Yeah, I mean, that's an impressive time for anyone, let alone a debut marathon. But it's also not a time that I would think that someone would say, oh, this person's going to drop another 30 minutes and become a professional runner. So after that race, what were you thinking? Did you love it? Were you ready to sign up for the next one? What did that look like?
Hey.
I got a companion.
Who's that?
Yeah, so this is my dog, Nauta. He was cuddling with me, but now he's being curious. So He's just hanging. Go away. Go this way. Sorry. So I mean, you have that like pain. I'm never doing this again. And then what, like 45 minutes later, you're celebrating and you're like, let's do the next one. I'm ready to get hurt again. So I really wanted to get faster, and I didn't know what that meant. But after that, and just getting more and more involved with Mill City and meeting people, that's when I was first kind of exposed to, or like found out about like this gonna be Nike support program that I had no idea what it was going to be and what it was going to look like. But they were looking to support female marathoners. And at that point, we didn't know what the OTQ was going to be. I think everyone knew it was going to be faster. And so I thought, maybe I can OTQ. Maybe it's going to be 242. Maybe it's going to be 240. And found out about Nike Dreamweaver. And kind of as that program started and evolved, is when we found out about the OTQ time, kind of like 2-3 months into Dreamweaver.
So the Nike program, what do they provide you as an athlete?
The Dreamweavers?
Yeah, the Dreamweaver program.
Yeah, so Dreamweaver started in kind of August of 2021. And at the time, I had no idea what it was going to be, what to expect. And I think, really looking at back, I think the Nike staff would say the same thing. So myself and a few of including myself, my teammate, Kim Horner, and then a few other people I know, all were able to apply through Mill City. And when it started, it seemed like, okay, this is going to be, we get shoes, which is huge. Every 3 months, we were getting a shipment of a Vaporfly and Alphafly, and then usually like 1 or 2 training shoes, kind of based off preference. And they were, first it's everyone is taking their Vaporfly and their Alphafly and they're putting them in the closet and saying like, I'll save those for the big stuff. And the Nike staff just kept saying like, please wear them. We want you to wear them. You'll be getting new ones in 3 months. If for some reason if you have a race coming up, like we can send you a new one. So getting used to that, like having endless shoes at your disposal was just kind of the very first shock factor. And then we were sharing data so that they could use it for their development of shoes, especially for women. So kind of heart rate data, and then things like a pod on our back that looks at like your contact time and, all sorts of different data points that I don't actually look at too closely for them for, wearing how the shoes were. And then we would kind of report what kind of run we did and what shoe we were wearing and all those types of things. And then from there, it just evolved into this like absolute huge support program of women kind of, 20s, 30s, 40s all over the country with, people who had recently completed degrees and were starting the professional field, people who were just getting married, people who had children, people coming back to running after children. So a really, really cool program where it was kind of a come as you are. The goal is to OTQ, but we also know if you're 3 months postpartum, that's not where you are, and that's okay. And we want to support each other. And so, that's just like incredibly cool, positive support group of both the Nike staff and then the women all over the country is what it really formed to. I could talk about it for like hours, so I don't want to like. I
mean, I know that Megan. So when Megan was doing Chicago, like she was in the tent with a bunch of the Nike Dreamweaver program people. And
it was very easy to spot because like everyone came in like decked out in matching. I don't know if it was like jumpsuits or just like black jackets, and then the Alphafly 3s, which weren't available at that time. And so it was very easy to spot everyone.
Which made you very jealous.
Yeah. And I was also like very intimidated because like they looked so like professional and fast. And I was like, I felt so out of place sitting in that tent.
Oh, let me tell you, if you had like, if it wasn't race setting and like you had chatted with anyone, you would have been like, oh, this is a very cool group of women. And we all just want each other to have the best day ever. And so may have felt a little overwhelming. Yeah. Especially probably seeing those unreleased shoes on everybody's feet. But from the inside, we just like absolutely support each other.
And they were nice.
Yeah, we chatted. I think actually she might have been one of your friends, and I'm forgetting her name now. But after the race, we chatted, and she gave us her shoe so we could look at it.
I know you guys want to see the shoe, so we're like, okay, yeah, let's check it out.
Yeah, so that was very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what happens, because you like your marathon times like just consistently dropped by a substantial amount since your debut. So what were you doing and what changes were you making between each one?
Running really consistently, I would say just over the past really 5 years is, I think, a reflection of where things are now. It kind of went from a lot of 60-mile weeks to a lot of 80-mile weeks to a lot of 100-mile weeks, and kind of now pushing that on like 110, 115 a lot, and then peaking a little higher. So I think it was really finding that consistent base and just not missing much. So it really just became pretty all-encompassing in my life, where it was like getting my runs in, getting my nutrition in, getting my lifts in, getting mobility in, and sleeping. And so life has become persistently more boring, but that's okay.
It's boring until you go to the trials, and it's exciting.
Yeah.
And then, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So from an outside perspective, it looks sort of like every marathon was kind of a breakthrough, but do you feel like you had a breakthrough moment where you were like, this is like it, like I want to really go after this?
I think the two that would stand out the most for me would be Grandma's in 2022 when I OTQ'd. I think it was just a huge confidence build for me, and I felt like it was a phenomenal race. I gave it everything I had, but I felt like I had a ton in me training-wise to keep going. And so the big jumps didn't feel that overwhelming or big, because I just felt like, okay, if I just keep my head down and I just keep focused, I think I can continue to make these. And I'd also say Chicago was somewhere where, I had wanted to hit the Olympic standard at Grandma's in 2023 and just didn't quite get there. And so I knew I wanted to, kind of run a good amount faster. And so just having like the perfect day with the perfect pacer and the perfect pack of women to run with, and just loving the course, loving the crowd. The weather was great for me. That felt like a really big breakthrough for me.
Okay, so back to Grandma's 2023 when you first got the OTQ. Talk to us a little about that day. Were you in a pack of other women that were part of the Dreamweavers, or were you in a pace group? What did that look like?
Yeah, so Grandma's 2022 is the OTQ, and we had some Dreamweaver teammates there. And so, yeah, that was really nice. I think there were probably like 10 or 15 of us that were working together. And myself and my teammate Kim, I think, were the Dreamweavers who OTQ'd at that one. And so, yeah, we worked off each other for probably at least the first like 15-ish miles. And then I was feeling pretty good. So I just went, and I think I was alone for probably about 10. And then in 2023, we had like much more formal Dreamweaver support, because they pick a few marathons every year. And so that this past year we had, probably like 30 of us who were all running either the half or the full. And then when we have a Dreamweaver kind of focus marathon, there's like a lot of like team stuff the day before and a brunch after, and like sign making and kind of friendship bracelet making, kind of a lot of fun things that just keep you kind of chilled out and not focusing on your race.
That's super fun.
I think it would be different for the guys.
I don't think you guys would do the same activities probably.
I don't know. I could see Galen Rupp making friendship bracelets.
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe.
So actually a really cool piece of it is with Dreamweaver, all of the Dreamweavers that OTQ'd, as well as all the pros, we all went out to Nike in December. And I don't think Galen made any friendship bracelets at trials, but we were definitely kind of like trying to be more of a collective team. And so he was in the mix, and, seemed to be enjoying himself in the Dreamweaver space.
And that campus is insane. Like, did you get to run on the track there?
Yeah, so Dream River brought us out 3 times to campus.
Oh, wow.
Pretty wild. So we went as a full group in late April, early May of 2022. And that's when we went to, some people saw like Shalane had paced a half. So that was when we went to Eugene and she paced a half marathon, and we'd spent some time on campus before then. And then we went, they did like 10 or 12 mini camps with 10 athletes each throughout last spring and last summer. So spent probably like 3 days there, and then got to go for a third time shortly before trials.
Yeah, it's to me, it's one of the coolest. Like, we've seen a lot of the headquarters, but that one's like a college campus. It's like insane. It's like I feel like everybody should get a chance to go check out the Nike headquarters. It's insane.
It's like adult Disney.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a question about the Dreamweavers in general, because it was, at least from an outside perspective, very secretive, and like no one really talked about it, but we had like heard about it. It was kind of like whispered about. So what was your guys' direction? Like, were you allowed to talk about it at all, or no?
With friends and family, it was pretty open. I think at first it was pretty easy to keep quiet because we were kind of more scattered out. But as we, they supported us at CIM and Grandma's, and obviously, like you said, Chicago, you'd see these big herds of people with, our armband on, which is a heart rate monitor, and we have our Dreamweaver bracelets, and a lot of us were like wearing temporary tattoos and the shoes. So if someone asked us, we could say, we are part of a Nike support program. But until the week of trials, it was something that I wasn't sure if Nike was fully going to share or if they were going to keep it internal. And we were just sort of looking to their team for guidance on how to talk about it.
I am surprised that they didn't, like, Nike's great at marketing. Like, I would think that this was an opportunity to highlight some of the athletes, especially, working with women in the sport. Like, is it an opportunity missed, do you think, that they're not?
No, because I feel like because it was so secretive, like we wanted to know more. And then the trials weekend, it seemed like everyone who was a part of the program posted something on social media about how wonderful it was. At least that's what I saw from the outside.
Yeah, that was kind of the launch that they did, was the trials week.
Yeah. Okay, I want to go back to Chicago 2023, this past Chicago. That was clearly, like you said, a breakthrough performance for you, not only in the time that you ran, but it seems like your life kind of changed immediately after that to you signing with Nike. So first of all, was Nike always going to be the brand for you? Did any other brands reach out? Did you think about anyone else? What did that look like?
I'd say about a year and a half prior, like after I OTQ'd, it was, where can this go? How fast can I get? And after CIM, I remember talking to my boss at work. I'm not there yet, but at some point I want to do, I'm trying to do this professionally. I'd like to drop down in time. So definitely, year and a half out, I was starting to think about where things were and how things would progress. But through Dreamweaver, there was just never a question for me if there was another brand I'd want to work with. So some brands did reach out after Chicago, but as soon as I realized that Nike had mutual interest, it was pretty much a done deal for me.
That's awesome. And then you were kind of talking to us about how you've transitioned from full-time to part-time now. And so with Nike, what does this year look like for you?
That is a question I also am wondering. We are still just kind of working on my spring calendar, what things are going to look like. I'll say no spring marathon for me. I am ready to have a little bit shorter stuff, a little bit quicker stuff, and then probably a fall marathon, and not entirely sure where or when, but I'd like to run really fast this fall.
Yeah, it's interesting to me because like now we've had the trials. So there's obviously this past cycle was a short one with the 3 years between Tokyo and Paris, but now it's going to be a full 4-year cycle. So it's a different game plan for like how you're going to approach it. Like, especially if you have aspirations to run, the Olympics. If that's the goal, how do you, like, what does that build look like? Have you mapped it out, or like, are you just trying to do like short-term thinking?
Yeah, I think, my number one goal is just see how fast I can run. And I think that's always how it's been. And so, yes, the goal would be to represent Team USA, and that would be amazing. But I think kind of more just how can I optimize this training block, and what can I do to keep getting faster and still like really love it and really enjoy it, and not feel like, the world is going to change if I make a team or if I don't make a team, and focusing on just like the team around me, my immediate running team, my family in Mill City, and then kind of shaping goals training cycle to training cycle, I think is working best for me.
All right. And you obviously had success at Chicago. It's not that far from your house anyway. And it's one that you've run fast. You know the course well. It's a Nike event. Like, what would keep you from this fall going back just and saying, hey, let's see how fast we can run Chicago?
I don't know the answer to that, to be honest. It's certainly a race I'm really interested in running again. But at the same time, I am open to, multiple races at this time. And I think there is something fun about like a new course. On the flip side, there's something really fun to knowing the course. So I think just seeing where time aligns up. And to be really honest, one of the things for me is still my work schedule. If a race is coming at a time that's like really tricky with work, that can sometimes still play into it for me.
Yeah. From where you're from though, beer and cheese it's not Wisconsin, but there's also a, marathon in Germany that's right around, Oktoberfest, and it's supposed to be a fast course.
Yeah. I have heard about that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's up for like a major.
I'm honestly not like keeping anything. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still. Yeah, there's no like hidden secret right now. I'm as much in the dark as you guys.
All right. We will be in Berlin, just in case.
If that skews you one way.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask you about running shoes because we're big nerds over here, and I know you get to try all of them. So, well, first of all, are you trying anything that's not out yet that you can't really talk about, like a future Vaporfly, Alphafly?
I am not at the moment. I'm not the standard test size. Okay. So I think that kind of is the number one, what's your shoe size? But at the moment, I'm not trying anything kind of crazy. I did have the Alphafly from 3 from last April. So I had that pretty early. Most of the Dreamweavers did.
Yeah. That's, I think, why I was most jealous of you guys in that whole program was the Alphafly 3s that I saw everywhere. Okay, so what's your daily training shoe? Like, what's your favorite thing? And then race day, are you Alphafly or Vaporfly, or does it depend on the distance?
Nike Invincible is my everyday shoe. I could run easy miles forever in that one. And then I am an Alphafly person. Love the Vaporfly, still wear them for a lot of workout interval stuff to kind of just change up shoe rotation. But race day is always an Alphafly.
All right. Have you run in all the Alphaflys, Alphafly 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah.
Do you have a personal favorite between the 3?
I think I have the similar, like, love the Alphafly 1. Meg, I think you did too. Is that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So there's still something about the Alphafly 1 that I know a lot of people didn't love, but I think if you hit that sweet spot, it's just like you put on one of those and you're like, woohoo, this is amazing. So I still absolutely love running in Alphafly 1s. But I think the 3 kind of combines that sensation that you either get or don't get with like a little bit more user-friendly shoe to it. I'd be interested, Meg, to see what you think, given you love the 1 so much.
That's a pretty good accurate accurate.
I feel very similar. And it was always funny to me talking to people about the Alpha Fly one who didn't enjoy it. Cause I almost like felt bad. Cause I was like, you don't feel this amazing sensation.
Like you're not getting trampolines underneath your...
I feel so bad that like your gait or whatever's happening is not taking advantage of this amazing shoe. But I do agree. I feel like the 3 sort of feels like the perfect blend of the Vaporfly, Alpha Fly, where it's maybe not as mechanical and not as harsh, but you still get that pop from the AirPod.
And it's lighter. They dropped an ounce.
So tell us, what did you celebrate with after trials, even though
and tell me it was 10 Mortons and some 360.
What's your go-to celebration meal after a race?
I guess I don't really have a celebration meal. I pretty much eat as much as I can during the training cycle. So there aren't really things that are off limits. I'm not really drinking very much during the training cycle. There is no, again, like rule, like I'm not drinking. But I think just kind of like having that post-race, like beer or mimosa is always something where it's like, okay, I haven't had a beer in 2 weeks. So this is pretty nice. And then usually it's something salty because like you said, all of the gels, all of the sports mixes, you're just like, I don't want to see a piece of fruit or something sweet for like 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can totally understand that.
Are you a vegan or anything like that?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So it could be a cheeseburger or whatever.
Or pizza. Yeah.
All right. Excellent.
That's good. Yeah. It's nice. It's refreshing to hear, like how balanced you live even during training, like that nothing's really off limits. Obviously, you're not going to be going out and drinking excessively during hard training, but it's nice to hear that you sort of have a balanced approach to it, not only after, but during training as well.
Megan likes it anyway, because that's her approach.
Alex is very good about keeping kind of life in balance. So I don't know. We just, when I get too intense and too serious, he's like, okay, we need to take a step back. Like there's I don't know if you've ever heard of like Matt's Bar is like supposed to be the first Juicy Lucy where like the cheese is in the middle of the burger, you know, it'd be like a Tuesday night. And he's like, we're going out for a Matt's Burger tonight. Like, let's go. So he's very good about like, I get kind of tunneled and intense in like training. And he's like, take a step back. You got to chill.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's also nice that is the part that's husband versus coach where he's like, we got to live a regular life too. Like, let's not just be like talking pace all the time.
Yeah. Or like Friday night, you know, I have a long run on Saturday morning. He's like, we don't need to just sit and watch TV all night. Like we can go get food and yes, be home early, but like we can still live our lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's nice. Great. That's perfect. Okay, Gabi, I feel terrible that this has been such a ridiculous, technical, challenging interview.
You hung in there though.
But yeah, very much
like your mom said, you're determined.
Yes. Determined to make this work.
You'll
so
get this in.
I very much appreciate it. And it was fun to chat with you and get to learn a little bit more about you. And yeah, we'll definitely have to have you back on after you do some cool stuff this year.
And we fix the internet.
Yeah, great.
And once
you guys are ever in Minneapolis, let me know.
I mean, Megan, you should go on your tour this summer there.
Yeah, maybe we'll make a stop there. It's nice in the summer, right? Because in the winters it looks pretty awful.
I think it's beautiful in the summer. It's a land of lakes.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing here in the summer. The running, I would say, is one of like the most underrated kind of sleeper cities with it. The access to the local parks is like some of the best in the nation. So you can run for literally hundreds of miles on paved trail with very few interruptions. And then we have a huge running community. And if you were in town, everyone would go crazy for you.
There we go.
That's awesome. All right. We're going to have to figure out
send Megan out
how to get there. Yeah, for sure.
Maybe you join the Dreamweaver team and Gabi's your...
Is that done now or is it still going on or are you not allowed to tell us?
Yeah, sadly, it's wrapping up. I have no idea if it's a one and done or if there'll be a second iteration of Dreamweaver or something different. I don't know if the Nike team knows, but we are going to be able to keep some like communication channels and kind of the support side of it, I think hopefully will live on for a very long time. I've met some really great friends from all over the country, and I don't see that piece of Dreamweaver going away. So part of Dreamweaver will continue to live, and then the formal Nike side of it for now is done.
Do you guys have a mass group text going on where you chat all the time?
We have a very active Slack channel.
Okay.
There you go.
That's awesome. Okay. This was great. Thanks again, Gabi. I hope next time we chat, it's way easier and less technological issues going on. But thank you again for coming on.
Yeah.
Have a great day.